Life throws some truly unexpected stuff our way, doesn't it?
Huh.
You think you've got a handle on things, and then bam, something completely out of left field happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're plunging into today on the Deep Dive. You sent us a genuinely fascinating collection of stories this time. 5 completely distinct narratives that, when you look at them, couldn't seem more different.
That's right. We've got a story that makes you wonder about, like, a potentially malevolent painting, a really baffling disappearance in Indonesia that almost defies explanation.
Yeah, that one's wild.
Then there's a medical situation that's so incredibly gross, it kind of circles back to being darkly funny.
Oh, boy.
A deeply touching account of unexpected kindness on the road, and a psychedelic experience that takes a very hairy feline turn. Quite the range.
Absolutely. And our mission today is to really delve into these seemingly unrelated tales and see if we can pull out some surprising insights. Even though they appear wildly different, we're going to try and find some of those, underlying threads that connect these very human experiences.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's unpack the first one, because this one definitely had me looking over my shoulder.
Our first story comes directly from you, one of our listeners, recounting your time living in a very unique college house and the very unsettling presence of a particular painting.
This was definitely not your standard college living situation. Picture this 5-bedroom house, clearly one of the first built in the area, and it was just sort of awkwardly placed sideways on the street.
Oh.
It had been split into a duplex at some point, and there were these odd remnants of that division, like a staircase that seemed to lead nowhere and a basement door that was just walled off.
Huh. Weird.
Yeah. You even mentioned gaps in the walls where you could see these old, faded scraps of paper. Kind of creepy.
A rather unusual setting for a group of mostly art students, which, in hindsight, really adds to the atmosphere of this first tale. Amongst all the creative works adorning the walls was this painting based on a bust of an older woman.
Right.
What was particularly striking, and maybe unsettling, was how lifelike the skin tone and texture appeared.
And you, our storyteller, said you had this immediate negative reaction to it, like visceral. Even though it wasn't the most visually dominant piece in the house, it just gave you the creeps right from the start.
Especially its placement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially because it was hanging right at the top of the stairs, right outside your first floor bedroom. Those late-night trips to the bathroom became something you actively tried to avoid.
Yeah, I can see that. You'd be taking the long way around.
Totally. It got to the point where you were taking the back stairs or even going outside rather than walking past it in the dark. Eventually, you talked to the roommate who had painted it, and to her credit, she was understanding and agreed to move it.
Okay, good. So problem solved.
Well, this unsettling portrait was then relocated to the living room.
Ah.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because that's when things in the house started to feel, well, just wrong. You and your roommates started experiencing this general feeling of unease, almost like there was some kind of presence in the house. What started as jokes and nervous laughter slowly morphed into a more serious feeling of discomfort.
Okay, so the vibe shifted. Then the summer arrived. And with some roommates away subletting their rooms, a new individual entered the picture. Kay, who was found through Craigslist.
Ah, Craigslist subletters. Always a gamble.
Right. And from the very beginning, Kay's behavior was, shall we say, quite outside the norm.
Outside the norm is putting it mildly. We're talking about someone who carried a blonde wig around everywhere but never actually wore it.
Okay.
Who insisted on having a mini fridge in the bathroom for her cooking ingredients.
In the bathroom.
Who knows?
Really?
Slept in a hammock outside, kept all her belongings in a trunk that also housed a pet mouse.
A mouse in the trunk.
Yep. It was constantly bringing home people none of you had ever met. Oh, and let's not forget the bag of dead cicadas in her bathroom fridge.
Dead cicadas. Right. Okay. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
And Kay developed this intense fascination with the painting, talking about it incessantly. Then things started to make a strange kind of sense when you found a pill bottle, later used for spices, that contained a very strong antipsychotic medication.
Ah, okay.
This raises a question about the interplay between an individual's internal state and their perception of their environment.
Exactly. And the oddness just kept escalating. We're talking used condoms stapled to the ceiling. Stapled. Then a truly bizarre revenge incident where she emptied those condoms all over the bathroom after some kind of disagreement about the sublease.
Oh, my God.
And then her sudden departure, leaving all her belongings behind and, perhaps more concerningly, the keys to the walled-off basement.
The missing basement keys. Okay, that adds another layer of creepy. This understandably amplified the already unsettling atmosphere in the house. Your account mentions hearing unexplained voices seemingly coming from the direction of the basement.
Yeah, exactly.
But the real focal point of the strangeness became the painting itself.
It gets even weirder. You and some friends are in the living room talking about Kay and the creepy vibes in the house, specifically about the painting, and then suddenly, bam! It doesn't just fall off the wall, it flies across the room.
Flies off the wall. Whoa.
Another time, a freshly packed bowl of marijuana mysteriously gets smoked while you and a friend step outside for just a few minutes.
Smoked by who? Or what?
No idea. And the painting just kept turning upside down, even though nobody admitted to doing it.
Then there's the neighbor's cat, a frequent visitor to your house, who one night was found in the darkened living room, seemingly interacting with the painting, which had somehow ended up leaning against the wall.
Yeah, the cat was like batting at it or something. Super weird.
It makes you wonder if animals might be more sensitive to subtle environmental changes or energies that humans don't readily perceive.
Maybe. Anyway, that was the final straw. The painting was banished back to the original artist's studio, and just like that,
Yeah.
everything stopped.
Really?
Just stopped. The unease, the basement voices, all the strange occurrences, they just vanished. And the storyteller is left with these central, unanswered questions. What was going on with Kay? And what was the deal with that painting?
It's a classic story of unsettling roommate dynamics with a lingering question mark that leans into the potentially unexplained. It certainly illustrates how shared environments and even seemingly inanimate objects can become focal points for collective anxiety.
Hardo.
The introduction of an unconventional individual like Kay likely acted as a catalyst, amplifying the existing unease and perhaps even projecting it onto the painting. Now, let's shift gears completely, moving from the potentially paranormal to a truly baffling and chilling real-world mystery that occurred in Indonesia.
This next story really set a shiver down my spine. You, our listener, were living in Indonesia in a house you described as being almost like a wedding cake.
Okay, interesting visual.
With this rooftop nook that gave you a wide view of the surrounding area. This house was situated in the middle of an open square of land, and it backed onto a large, completely flat, unused field with absolutely no trees or anything that could offer cover.
Right, very exposed.
This field was separated from your property by just a simple 4-foot wall.
Okay, so a low wall. This very open and exposed setting is absolutely crucial to understanding just how improbable the events that unfolded were. One afternoon, you were relaxing in this rooftop nook when you heard these blood-curdling screams, a woman's voice.
Oh, no.
Speaking in English, possibly with an Australian or New Zealander accent, desperately crying out for help.
From your vantage point up there, you actually saw her running across the field at the back of your property. You said she appeared to be limping, and you were pretty sure you saw blood on her.
Oh, wow.
So she was clearly in a state of extreme distress. She's about halfway across this large open field when you first saw her.
Okay, halfway across. You immediately ran downstairs to the ground floor and headed towards the field. But in the incredibly short amount of time it took, you estimate no more than a minute, maybe even less.
Like 60 seconds, tops.
She had completely vanished. Think about that, a person disappearing in plain sight in an open field.
Vanished. In a completely open area with absolutely nowhere to hide. You really emphasized how incredibly unlikely it would be for someone to grab her and pull her away without you seeing them, especially given that tiny time frame.
Yeah, where could she go?
Feels almost physically impossible.
You and your house security immediately began searching the area. They went towards the direction she seemed to have come from, over that 4-foot wall that separated the field from an unused holiday villa.
Okay.
There, they discovered a single sandal and some blood. There was also blood on the wall itself, indicating she had climbed over into the field. But there was no blood going in the other direction, like back over the wall.
So she came over the wall, ran halfway across the field, screamed, and then gone.
Gone. The police were called, they conducted an investigation, but they didn't find anything further. Posters with her description were put up in the area, but there were absolutely no responses.
Nothing. Wow.
The witness is left grappling with the utter inexplicability of the situation. It forces us to confront the limitations of our perception and the very real possibility of events occurring outside our current understanding.
Definitely. What could have happened?
Well, the question of what might have initially harmed her does arise, perhaps stray animals, though there aren't typically any large enough in that specific area of Indonesia to cause such immediate distress and disappearance.
Right, you ruled out big predators.
Yeah, ruled out large indigenous predators, again emphasizing the open space and the incredibly short time that passed. You also mentioned that while there had been past attacks on tourists and expats in the area, it wasn't a common occurrence, not a pattern.
So the core of this mystery really is the vanishing act itself. Where could she have gone in that minuscule amount of time? It's a truly unsettling account that seems to defy any logical explanation, even leading the witness to contemplate possibilities that are, outside our conventional understanding of the world.
It really makes you think about those moments where reality seems to bend. It touches on the primal fear of the unknown and the vulnerability we feel when faced with the inexplicable.
Yeah, absolutely chilling.
Now, for a complete and rather dramatic shift in tone, brace yourselves.
Oh.
We move from the chilling unknown to the viscerally disgusting and, in a strange way, darkly humorous world of a very late-night surgical emergency.
Okay, everyone, buckle up, because this next story is definitely not for the faint of heart or stomach. Our third narrative takes us into the very early hours of the morning with a general surgery call for what initially seems like a fairly routine pararectal abscess.
Right. Not exactly glamorous surgery.
No, and one of those infections near well, you get the idea. The initial reaction from the experienced surgical team was decidedly unenthusiastic.
The ER nurse's ominous parting words, "Have fun with this one," really should have been a major red flag.
You'd think. The patient who was awaiting you was a very large, quite agitated Native American woman, moaning in pain, muttering Hail Marys, and proving very difficult to get any clear information from.
Okay, a challenging patient.
And her chart also ominously noted a history of IV drug use in the perineal area.
Okay, that complicates things. These types of infections, while common, can sometimes have unexpected complications, as we're about to hear.
Despite the patient's somewhat dramatic presentation, the surgical team was made up of seasoned professionals. They had definitely seen their fair share of unusual and challenging situations, psychiatric incidents, severe trauma cases, you name it.
Right, they're used to chaos.
Exactly. This really sets the stage for just how unexpected and truly remarkably awful this particular case would become.
After finally getting the patient safely under anesthesia and properly positioned for the procedure, the initial examination of the pararectal area seemed fairly standard. Red, inflamed, with some localized swelling.
With routine.
Nothing that immediately suggested an impending biological disaster. The assumption was a fairly typical infection, possibly linked to her reported history of drug use.
But then, the moment of the initial incision, the surgeon barely touches the area with a scalpel, and bam.
Oh.
A simultaneous involuntary muscle twitch from the patient's diaphragm unleashes. Well, unleash is a massive understatement. It's an absolute explosion.
An explosion of what?
Everything bad. Unbeknownst to them, the infection had tunneled an astonishing distance, nearly a foot, deep into her abdomen, creating this massive, unseen cavity filled with a truly horrific concoction of pus, necrotic tissue, and fecal matter that had somehow leaked from her colon.
Oh my God, no.
This unimaginable substance erupted from that small initial incision with truly unbelievable force.
The description is incredibly vivid. Waterproof gowns, masks, gloves, utterly and completely useless against this overwhelming torrent.
Useless.
The fluids literally sprayed across the operating room, hitting the back wall a good 7 feet away.
7 feet?
Completely soaking the floor, even filling the shoes of the other nurse in the room. And as the understandably shocked surgeon continued with the procedure, the patient began to seize.
Oh, jeez.
And with each muscle contraction, more of this brackish, utterly disgusting fluid just kept spewing out.
It sounds like a horror movie.
The scene quickly descended into absolute chaos. The second nurse actually vomited inside her mask and then promptly fled the room.
Can't blame her.
The anesthesiologist, a former athlete known for his composure, was visibly shaken and also retreated to get some fresh air, leaving this surreal tableau of the surgeon literally standing precariously, trying to avoid being further submerged in this grotesque tidal wave.
Just the surgeon left, standing into that.
And the smell. You described it as this overwhelming wave of despair and apathy, so incredibly potent it made it physically difficult to breathe.
I can almost imagine. Ugh.
Then comes the desperate search for the operating room's emergency peppermint concentrate, the one thing that can usually, at least partially, mask such horrific odors.
The magic stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Only to discover that the bottle was completely empty.
No. The ultimate betrayal.
Finding only mastosol, a surgical adhesive rub, as a very inadequate substitute, you and the returning anesthesiologist liberally applied it inside your masks, just desperate to smell anything at all, other than the overwhelming biohazard before you.
Whatever works, right.
You even noted its unexpected side effect of inducing a mild high, which, frankly, sounds like an absolutely essential coping mechanism in that situation.
Seriously. You'd need something.
By this point, the contamination had actually spread down the hallway, reaching the front desk, where the first nurse was still trying to process what she'd just witnessed.
Oh, wow. It spread that far.
Apparently. The OR suite itself apparently looked like something straight out of a low-budget horror film. And the surgeon, bless his incredibly resilient soul, continued the procedure, literally ankle-deep in this unimaginable mess.
Unbelievable dedication. Or maybe just shock.
The cleanup operation afterward was equally epic, involving what you described as alcohol showers, and the entire department still reeked of the aftermath the following day, with the affected OR suite being immediately quarantined.
I bet. You'd have to burn the place down.
The surgeon's incredibly rare and understated assessment afterwards, simply, "that was bad," really speaks volumes about the truly exceptional nature of this event.
That was bad. Yeah, understatement of the century. It certainly redefines and probably obliterates any previous understanding of what might constitute a bad day in a healthcare setting.
Absolutely.
What a truly unforgettable and, frankly, deeply stomach-churning story. Okay, after that vivid experience, I think we all desperately need a palate cleanser.
Definitely.
Let's move on to a story that thankfully highlights the incredible kindness of strangers.
Yes, please. This fourth narrative provides a genuinely heartwarming and much-needed contrast. It's a personal account of repeated car troubles and the completely unexpected and generous help received from Mexican immigrants.
Okay, nice change of pace.
The storyteller begins by mentioning their long-standing habit of stopping for hitchhikers, a practice they had temporarily paused after moving to a large city, but had recently resumed after a personal experience shifted their perspective.
Good for them. Takes guts sometimes.
This act of reciprocal generosity speaks volumes about the resilience of human empathy, particularly across cultural and linguistic barriers. In the past year, this person experienced 3 separate instances of car trouble while driving other people's vehicles. A tire blowout on the freeway, blown fuses, and running completely out of gas.
Oof, bad luck streak. And while driving other people's cars, too. That's the worst.
Right. Adding insult to injury, they noted the really frustrating lack of assistance from other drivers and the often exorbitant prices and unhelpful policies encountered at various gas stations.
Yeah, it can feel like nobody wants to help sometimes. Makes you wonder about the sense of community on the road these days.
Exactly. The first incident, the flat tire, really stands out. After spending 4 long hours stranded on the side of the road with clearly visible signs reading, "Need a jack," and even offering money.
4 hours.
Wow, not a single person stopped to offer any assistance. Just as they were about to completely give up hope, a van pulled over, and a man, along with his family of 6, quickly got out.
Ah, finally, some help.
Despite a significant language barrier, the family spoke very limited English. The father immediately assessed the situation. Using his youngest daughter as a translator, he explained that his own car jack was unfortunately too small to lift the Jeep.
Oh, typical.
But he had a resourceful plan. He literally took a saw to a downed log he found nearby and began cutting a section to use as a makeshift brace.
Get out with a saw. Talk about thinking on your feet.
Incredible, right? As they started to remove the damaged wheel, the borrowed tire iron unexpectedly broke.
Oh, come on, Murphy's Law.
Without any hesitation, the man sent his wife to a nearby store to purchase a new one, and she returned within 15 minutes. Together, the entire family pitched in, and they quickly finished the job, all of them covered in sweat and dirt.
Wow, the whole family. That's amazing.
The wife then thoughtfully produced a jug of water so they could wash their hands.
Class act.
When our storyteller tried to offer the man some money as a token of their immense gratitude, he initially and firmly refused. However, the wife quietly accepted it.
Okay, fair
But the
enough.
generosity didn't end there. When the narrator happened to mention feeling hungry, the wife offered a delicious-looking tamale from their cooler.
Oh, that's so nice.
And get this. Inside the tamale, they found the very $20 bill they had tried to give the father.
No way. He put the money in the tamale.
Yep. It's an incredibly moving gesture, truly highlighting a profound sense of generosity and empathy from a family who likely had considerably less financial security than the person they were helping.
Wow. That's just beautiful.
The father's parting words, spoken in broken but deeply meaningful English, "Today you, tomorrow me," left a truly lasting impact on our storyteller.
Today you, tomorrow me.
Yeah,
Yeah, that hits hard. Absolutely. Our storyteller was so profoundly moved by this act of kindness that they actually cried.
I bet.
Since that day, they have consciously adopted the same spirit of helping others in need on the road and now consistently refuse any form of payment, echoing the very same powerful message. Today you, tomorrow me. Or as the commenter later beautifully added in Spanish, hoy por ti, mañana por mí.
Hoy por ti, mañana por mí. That's lovely. The story clearly resonated deeply with many people, with a commenter from Mexico specifically expressing their heartfelt gratitude and emphasizing the positive values often found within Mexican culture and their inherent view of Americans as neighbors and friends.
It really shows you something, doesn't it?
It's a truly powerful reminder of the fundamental human connection that transcends differences in language and background, and the profound and lasting impact that even a simple act of unexpected kindness can have, especially for those facing hardship.
It truly is. After those emotional highs and lows, let's wrap things up with a story that is definitely on the lighter side, although still filled with its own unique brand of chaos.
Okay, I think we need some light relief now.
Agreed. Our fifth and final narrative is a genuinely humorous tale of a psychedelic misadventure involving magic mushrooms and a rather significant number of very determined cats.
Ah, mushrooms and cats, what could possibly go wrong?
Right. This listener recounted their first experience with magic mushrooms in many years, having embarked on a home-growing journey with the sincere intention of having a spiritually meaningful experience.
Okay. Noble intentions.
Particularly in contrast to some less than pleasant encounters they had had with LSD in the past.
Ah, okay. Different vibe intended.
The night they decided to partake was actually quite spontaneous, mostly fueled by a bout of boredom and chatting with friends online, not having a proper scale handy.
Uh-oh, first mistake.
Big mistake.
Yeah.
They wisely decided to post a picture of their intended dose online and thankfully heeded the immediate and unanimous advice to cut it in half.
Phew. Good call, internet friends.
Seriously. Down the hatch it went in a purple slushy, immediately followed by a shower.
The effects apparently hit very quickly and with significant intensity in the shower, with the distinct sensation of their consciousness being rapidly pulled away and a rather unsettling, distorted perception of their own body.
Yeah, sounds about right for a quick onset.
Emerging from the basement shower, they found the kitchen light to be overwhelmingly bright, and the floor seemed to have this strange, almost liquid texture. But the real adventure, the one involving significant feline intervention, began when their black cat suddenly darted downstairs to the basement.
Oh no, the cat escaped.
The cat escape. What then unfolded was a hilariously chaotic and increasingly desperate attempt to herd all 5 of their cats out of the basement, while our narrator was under the rapidly intensifying influence of psychedelic effects.
5 cats while tripping. That's mission impossible.
Pretty much. Their initial plan A involved the somewhat optimistic approach of simply scooping up each cat and tossing them unceremoniously upstairs.
Oh, yeah, good luck with that.
Which, as anyone who has ever tried to manage multiple cats can imagine, predictably failed. Spectacularly, I imagine.
Totally. Cats do not cooperate,
Yeah.
especially not 5 at once.
Then came the slightly more strategic Plan B, attempting to count the cats by name as they were brought upstairs.
Okay, slightly better plan.
This endeavor, however, quickly devolved into utter confusion and repeated, seemingly endless trips up and down the basement stairs, the very simple concept of the basement door being wide open, completely escaping their altered perception.
Oh no, the open door loop.
Each of these journeys felt like an eternity due to the classic psychedelic effect of time dilation.
Right, like Groundhog Day, but with cats and mushrooms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Utterly mentally and physically exhausted by this point, our narrator finally resorted to waking their wife to ask for help.
Oh, the classic wake the sober person move.
With what I can only imagine was a rather dramatic and probably not entirely coherent announcement about mushroom consumption and the urgent feline situation in the basement.
Honey, mushrooms, cats, basement, help. Something like that.
Probably pretty close. The wife, understandably less than amused by being abruptly woken up for a psychedelic cat emergency, rather firmly instructed the narrator to handle the cats themselves.
Huh. You took the drugs. You wrangle the cats.
Fair enough.
What ensued was a slow, painstaking, and increasingly frustrating process of coaxing and carrying the cats upstairs one by one, all accompanied by the wife's increasingly amused and probably slightly sarcastic commentary as the narrator teetered precariously on the very edge of a complete breakdown.
I can just picture her leaning against the doorframe, sipping coffee, like having fun there, honey.
Totally. Eventually, after what must have felt like an eon, all the cats were finally accounted for upstairs. But the psychedelic trip was, of course, far from over, filled with further confusion and intense distortions of time.
The cat mission was just the beginning.
The narrator, ultimately grateful for having halved the initial dose, wisely concluded that magic mushrooms were definitely not a viable solution for boredom, and likely wouldn't be something they'd be revisiting in that particular context anytime soon. Probably a good call. Lesson learned.
The original poster even helpfully provided a TLDR summary. 8 magic mushrooms for the first time in many years, and chased cats out of the basement all night until I gave up and got my wife to tame the beasts.
Epic summary.
Subsequent updates also revealed the current number of pets, which has now grown to 6 cats and 2 dogs.
More animals, brave soul.
And the insightful, mushroom-induced hyperfixation on the perceived necessity of getting all the cats out of the basement as the primary reason for not simply leaving them down there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Your brain just locks onto one weird goal.
Exactly. It really does sound like a classic tale of good intentions, hilariously and thoroughly derailed by unexpected circumstances and the inherent silliness that can sometimes accompany psychedelic experiences.
Absolutely. Well, that was quite the journey through your submissions. From the potentially paranormal painting and the absurdly gross medical emergency to the chilling disappearance, the heartwarming kindness, and the psychedelic cat herding. Wow. What an incredible and diverse collection of stories you've shared with us.
It really does highlight the beautifully unpredictable nature of life, doesn't it? And as you mentioned right at the beginning, these deep dives into your sources so often lead to those surprising aha moments. Each of these narratives, in its own very unique way, offers us a glimpse into the often unexpected and sometimes truly bizarre aspects of what it means to be human and to navigate the world around us.
So as we wrap up this particular deep dive, it leaves me with a final thought for you, our listeners. What do these stories, taken all together, perhaps tell us about the world and our place within it?
Yeah, what's the takeaway?
Is it the things we can't explain that truly unsettle us? Or is it those unexpected moments of profound kindness that leave the most lasting and meaningful impression?
Or maybe both.
Or maybe it's simply the constant reminder that even in the midst of the seemingly mundane routine of our everyday lives, the extraordinary, whether terrifying, incredibly funny, or deeply moving, really can erupt at any given moment.
A good reminder to stay open to the unexpected.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing these incredible tales with us. And we encourage you to absolutely keep exploring the unexpected in your own lives.